My neighbor has a fuel tank that's rectangular or cylindrically shaped, and like most farm fuel tanks, it's lays on the ground like this. The circular end is up, and then it lays down on the ground. So this would be kind of this idea of what it looks like. And he has 15 inches of fuel in the bottom of it. So there's 15 inches of fuel. It's 60 inches long, and it's 38 across. And he wants to know, so this is bottom of fuel in it. He wants to know how many gallons of fuel is in there. So what we're going to do is figure that out. Now, before we figure this particular problem out, let's look at again and remind you and me, how do you figure out the volume of a cylinder? Oh, just a minute, I got a little problem there. How do we figure out the volume of a cylinder? Now remember, the volume of a cylinder, most cylinders, when you see them in the book and in the problem, they're standing up like this. And the basic formula is base times height, where the base is the circle, so that's pi r squared h. Well, we have the same thing going on here, but this time instead of an h, we're going to have a length. So we have pi r squared length. And in our situation, our radius would be 19 if our diameter is 38. So 19 squared times our height of 60. And that's going to give us cubic inches. Then we're going to have to change that to gallons. So let's go to our calculator and let's figure that out. So there's our calculator. So we have 3.14 for pi times 19 times 19 times 60. And I end up with 68,012 cubic inches. Okay, let's go back to our paper. So we have 68,012.4 cubic inches. Now, if you look it up on the internet, you find that 1 gallon, or look it up in some source, any source, is 231 cubic inches. So then we go back to our calculator and divide our 68,012 cubic inches, divide that by 231, and we get 294.4, we'll say. So we have a total of 294.4 gallons in that tank. In the whole tank, it's possible to have 294.4 gallons. Now, how do we find the gallons that are in this 15 inches right here of fluid? And he measured that by putting like a metal rod. There's the input spout. Put a metal rod down that is straight up and down in the tank and pull it out and measure 15 inches. Okay, let's stop and regroup, and we'll take a look at why or how we're going to find this out. So here's our drawing of our tank again. And basically what we have to do is find this area right here, which is called a segment, and take that times our 60 inches to get our total cubic inches, because our segment is going back in the tank. Now notice something here. We've got a number of different types of areas. Like this is called the segment. This right here, I'll just make that in blue. That's supposed to be a straight line. That's supposed to be a curve. That's called a sector. And then of course we've got this big triangle on top of the top part of the sector. Sector's made of this triangle. Plus the segment. So if we're trying to find the segment, we're going to have to take the sector minus the triangle. So there's our blueprint for finding out what the volume of this remaining fuel is. And then once we have that segment, we'll take the segment times our 60 inches. So we have to, now let's start out finding the area of the triangle. Well, in order to find the area of the triangle, we know this is 15 right here. So we better fill in some missing sides. If this is 19 radius, then the radius would go down here would be 19, 15. Then this little piece of the triangle would be 4. So taking half of that triangle and drawing it out, we've got a 19, a 4, and there's a right angle. And it looks like we're going to need to find this piece right here, that base. Then the area of the triangle will be half the base times the height. So we could use our Pythagorean theorem to find this missing side we'll call A. So 4 squared plus A squared equals 19 squared. So A squared equals 19 squared is 361 minus 4 squared 16. So A squared is 345. If A squared is 345, then we go back to our calendar, or our calculator rather, and go 345, square root of that. It ends up being, we'll call it 18.57. So back to our area then of our triangle, 1/2, 2 times the 18.57, because I want to find the whole triangle here. So I need that whole base, times 4. The half and the 2 cancel out, and I end up with 18.57 times 4, which turns out to be 74.28 square inches. So there's my area of my triangle. Okay, now let's go and find the area of the segment. Okay, now let's stop and rearrange. The area of the sector is theta over 360 pi r squared. And this right here, this angle is theta. So in other words, we're taking the portion that theta is of 360 of the area of the whole circle. So we have to find out what theta is. How do we do that? We'll go back up here. This would be half of theta. We could find out what that was, or that is, by simply realizing that cosine of half of theta equals 4/19. Therefore, the inverse cosine of 4/19, and see what that is. Let's go to our calculator. So we've got 4 divided by 19. We see what decimal that is, then take the inverse cosine of that, and we get 77.84 degrees. Double that to 155.7, we'll call it. 155.7. Go back. So we've just found out theta equals 155.7 degrees. So 155.7 over 360 times 3.14 times 19 squared. Go to our calculator and see what that is. So we'll divide this by 360 times pi times 19 times 19. We end up with 490.2, we'll say. Square inches. So then our segment over here, our segment is the sector 490.2 minus the triangle, which is 74.28. And therefore our segment being 416 square inches. Now our volume then will simply be that 416 times 60. And that turns out to be, let's see what that is. Times 60, about 24,957.4, 24,957.4. 24,957.4 cubic inches. Once again, divide by, since 1 gallon equals 231 cubic inches. Getting a little bit hard to read. So go back to our calculator. Divide by 231 inches. And we end up with 108 gallons. About. So the 15 inches of fuel in the bottom of this cylindrical tank is about 108 gallons. Okay, now this is coming from Mr. Block Tutors Math, and you can find me on the internet at Mr. Block tutorsmath.com. Thank you. We'll see you.